of the sanitary condition of the English working class. The injurious effects peculiar to single employments as now conducted, I shall not deal with here. Besides these, there are other influences which enfeeble the health of a great number of workers, intemperance most of all. All possible temptations, all allurements combine to bring the workers to drunkenness. Liquor is almost their only source of pleasure, and all things conspire to make it accessible to them. The working man comes from his work tired, exhausted, finds his home comfortless, damp, dirty, repulsive. He has urgent need of recreation. He must have something to make work worth his trouble, to make the prospect of the next day endurable. His unnerved, uncomfortable, hypochondriac state of mind and body arising from his unhealthy condition, and especially from indigestion, is aggravated beyond endurance by the general conditions of his life, the uncertainty of his existence, his dependence upon all possible accidents and chances, and his inability to do anything towards gaining an assured position. His enfeebled frame, weakened by bad air and bad food, violently demands some external stimulus. His social need can be gratified only in the public house. He has absolutely no other place where he can meet his friends. How can he be expected to resist the temptation? It is morally and physically inevitable that, under such circumstances, a very large number of working men should fall into intemperance. And apart from the chiefly physical influences which drive the working man into drunkenness, there is the example of the great mass, the neglected education, the impossibility of protecting the young from temptation, in many cases the direct influence of intemperate parents, who give their own children liquor, the certainty of forgetting for an hour or two the wretchedness and burden of life, and 100 other circumstances so mighty that the workers can, in truth, hardly be blamed for yielding to such overwhelming pressure. Drunkenness has here ceased to be a vice, for which the vicious can be held responsible. It becomes a phenomenon, the necessary inevitable effect of certain conditions upon an object, possessed of no volition in relation to those conditions. They who have degraded the working man to a mere object, have the responsibility to bear. But as inevitably as a great number of working men fall a prey to drink, just so inevitably does it manifest its ruinous influence upon the body and mind of its victims. All the tendencies to disease arising from the conditions of life of the workers are promoted by it. It stimulates in the highest degree the development of lung and digestive troubles, the rise and spread of typhus epidemics. Another source of physical mischief to the working class lies in the impossibility of employing skilled physicians in cases of illness. It is true that a number of charitable institutions strive to supply this want, that the infirmary in Manchester, for instance, receives or gives advice and medicine to 2,200 patients annually. But what is that in a city in which, according to Gaskell's calculation, 104 3/4 of the population need medical aid every year? English doctors charge high fees, and working men are not in a position to pay them. They can therefore do nothing, or are compelled to call in cheap charlatans, and use quack remedies, which do more harm than good. An immense number of such quacks thrive in every English town, securing their clientele among the poor by means of advertisements, posters, and other such devices. Besides these, vast quantities of patent medicines are sold, for all conceivable ailments: Morrison's pills, Pye's life pills, Dr. Mainwaring's pills, and 1,000 other pills, essences, and balsams, all of which have the property of curing all the ills that flesh is heir to. These medicines rarely contain actually injurious substances, but, when taken freely and often, they affect the system prejudicially, and as the unwary purchasers are always recommended to take as much as possible, it is not to be wondered at that they swallow them wholesale, whether wanted or not. It is by no means unusual for the manufacturer of Pye's life pills to sell 20 to 25,000 boxes of these salutary pills in a week, and they are taken for constipation by this one, for diarrhea by that one, for fever, weakness, and all possible ailments. As our German peasants are cupped or bled at certain seasons, so do the English working people now consume patent medicines to their own injury and the great profit of the manufacturer. One of the most injurious of these patent medicines is a drink prepared with opiates, chiefly laudanum, under the name Godfrey's cordial. Women who work at home, and have their own and other people's children to take care of, give them this drink to keep them quiet, and, as many believe, to strengthen them. They often begin to give this medicine to newly born children, and continue, without knowing the effects of this heart cease, until the children die. The less susceptible the child's system to the action of the opium, the greater the quantities administered. When the cordial ceases to act, laudanum alone is given, often to the extent of 15 to 20 drops at a dose. The coroner of Nottingham testified before a parliamentary commission 105A, that one apothecary had, according to his own statement, used 1,300 weight of laudanum in 1 year in the preparation of Godfrey's cordial. The effects upon the children so treated may be readily imagined. They are pale, feeble, wilted, and usually die before completing the 2nd year. The use of this cordial is very extensive in all great towns and industrial districts in the kingdom. The result of all these influences is a general enfeeblement of the frame in the working class. There are few vigorous, well-built, healthy persons among the workers, i.e., among the factory operatives, who are employed in confined rooms, and we are here discussing these only. They are almost all weakly, of angular but not powerful build, lean, pale, and of relaxed fiber, with the exception of the muscles especially exercised in their work. Nearly all suffer from indigestion, and consequently from a more or less hypochondriac, melancholy, irritable nervous condition. Their enfeebled constitutions are unable to resist disease, and are therefore seized by it on every occasion. Hence they age prematurely, and die early. On this point the mortality statistics supply unquestionable testimony. According to the report of Registrar General Graham, the annual death rate of all England and Wales is something less than 2.25%. That is to say, out of 45 persons, one dies every year. 105b. This was the average for the year 1839 to 40. In 1840 to 41 the mortality diminished somewhat, and the death rate was but 1 in 46. But in the great cities the proportion is wholly different. I have before me official tables of mortality. Manchester Guardian, July 31, 1844, according to which the death rate of several large towns is as follows: in Manchester, including Calton and Salford, 1 in 32.72, and excluding Calton and Salford, 1 in 30.75. In Liverpool, including West Derby suburb, 31.90, and excluding West Derby, 29.90, while the average of all the districts of Cheshire, Lancashire, and Yorkshire cited, including a number of wholly or partially rural districts and many small towns, with a total population of 2,172,506. For the whole, is 1 death in 39.80 persons. How unfavorably the workers are placed in the great cities. The mortality for Prescott in Lancashire shows a district inhabited by miners, and showing a lower sanitary condition than that of the agricultural districts, mining being by no means a healthful occupation. But these miners live in the country, and the death rate among them is but 1 in 47.54, or nearly 2.5% better than that for all England. All these statements are based upon the mortality tables for 1843. Still higher is the death rate in the Scotch cities. In Edinburgh, in 1838 to 39, 1 in 29, in 1831, in the Old Town alone, 1 in 22. In Glasgow, according to Dr. Cowan, 106. The average has been, since 1830, 1 in 30, and in single years, 1 in 22 to 24. That this enormous shortening of life falls chiefly upon the working class, that the general average is improved by the smaller mortality of the upper and middle classes, is attested upon all sides. One of the most recent depositions is that of a physician, Dr. P. H. Holland, in Manchester, who investigated Calton on Medlock, a suburb of Manchester, under official commission. He divided the houses and streets into 3 classes each, and ascertained the following variations in the death rate. First class of streets. Houses I class. Mortality 1 in 51, II, 45, III, 36 second, I, 55, II, 38. III, 35 third, I, wanting, second, mortality, 35, third, 25. It is clear from other tables given by Holland, that the mortality in the streets of the second class is 18% greater, and in the streets of the third class 68% greater than in those of the first class, that the mortality in the houses of the second class is 31% greater, and in the third class 78% greater than in those of the first class, that the mortality is those bad streets which were improved, decreased 25%. He closes with the remark, very frank for an English bourgeois. 107. when we find the rate of mortality 4 times as high in some streets as in others, and twice as high in whole classes of streets as in other classes, and further find that it is all but invariably high in those streets which are in